Death does not begin with darkness. It begins at the fingertips. First, they lose sensitivity, as if I had kept my hands in ice water for too long. Then the cold creeps higher, up the forearms, grasping the elbows, screwing itself into the shoulders. This is not a metaphor, this is physiology. Peripheral vessels constrict, blood drains to vital organs in a last pathetic attempt to preserve heat in the core. My brain, that overrated lump of gray fat, is still recording data, still analyzing, even as the body turns to stone. I try to inhale. The diaphragm should descend, the intercostal muscles should contract, creating negative pressure. Simple mechanics. But it feels as if a concrete slab weighing a ton is lying on my chest. Air gets stuck in the larynx, thick and viscous, like syrup. The brain screams, "Run! Get up! Move!" releasing useless bursts of adrenaline that only hasten the inevitable. But the most terrifying thing is the sound. Thump, thump, hush. My heart, it beats not in my chest, but right against my eardrums. Dull, heavy, wet, like someone striking wet, packed sand with a large rubber mallet. Thump, thump, hush. I do not know if I am sleeping right now or recording this. The boundaries have blurred. The ink has run on the wet paper of reality, and I can no longer read the text. And it was this series of unexplained deaths among Hong refugees in the late 70s that inspired Wes Craven to create A Nightmare on Elm Street. Young, physically healthy men died in their sleep. Autopsies showed no pathologies, simply cardiac arrest. The Hung themselves believed that a dabsock came to them, an evil spirit that sits on the chest and steals the breath. I snorted and reached for the mouse to pause it. The cursor hovered over the stop button. "Nonsense," I said aloud to the empty room. On the monitor flickered an open document with an unfinished term paper on neurology. The clock in the corner of the screen showed 02:14, the perfect time for pseudo-scientific tales. I leaned back in my chair, massaging my stiff neck. The crunch of vertebrae sounded too loud in the silence of the apartment. I knew about this case. Sudden, unexplained nocturnal syndrome, SUNDS, a genetic predisposition to Brugada syndrome multiplied by the savage stress of migration and time zone changes. But it is easier for people to believe in dabsock, in demons and succubi, than to admit that their own organism is a time bomb with wires crossed by evolution. The nocebo effect in its purest form. They died because they believed they would die. The brain sent a signal to the heart to stop, obeying a cultural code of terror, a self-fulfilling prophecy. I turned off the podcast. Silence instantly filled the room, dense and cotton-like, broken only by the hum of the system unit's cooler. I felt the pleasant, cold superiority of reason. Science is the light that chases away the shadows where childish fears hide. I do not have genetic myocardial defects, and I do not believe in fairy tales, which means I am safe. I stood up and went to the kitchen. The linoleum chilled my bare feet. I poured a glass of water from the tap. It tasted of chlorine and old pipes, but this taste was the taste of reality. I drank it in one gulp, feeling the cold lump fall into my stomach. Out of habit, acquired after moving to the first floor in this rough neighborhood, I walked to the front door, checked the top lock, locked, checked the bottom one, locked. The click of the bolt sounded soothing, like the slide of a pistol. My home is my fortress. My brain is my citadel. Returning to the room, I glanced at the old heavy coat hanging on the rack in the corner. It hung crookedly, one sleeve forward, resembling a stooped man. I chuckled, turned off the light, and collapsed into bed. Fatigue covered me instantly, like a heavy blanket. Waking up was a mistake. I didn't open my eyes, I simply realized I was in the room,
but something was wrong. My body, it wasn't there. Or rather, it was, but I had lost administrator privileges. I tried to wiggle the pinky of my right hand. Nothing. Tried to roll over. Zero reaction. The body weighed thousands of tons. It had grown into the mattress, become part of furniture. Sleep paralysis. Classic. Muscle atonia hadn't switched off after the REM phase. The brain woke up before the body. A chemical glitch, nothing more. I forced myself to open my eyes. The room was drowning in viscous twilight. The only source of light was the small red LED on the computer monitor, which I had forgotten to unplug. It pulsed in sleep mode. Flash. Red light flooded the corner of the room. Darkness. Flash. In the corner where the coat rack stood, someone was there. A tall, unnaturally thin silhouette. Shoulders raised, head lowered, as if examining the baseboard. It's the coat, I told myself firmly. Mentally, because my lips wouldn't move. It's the damn coat. Pareidolia. The brain is trying to find familiar images in the chaos of shadows, an evolutionary defense mechanism against predators. There is no one there. Flash. The silhouette seemed closer, or was it a trick of the shadows? The fabric of the coat looked too dense, too heavy. It seemed as if there were bones beneath it. Darkness. I felt my heart begin to accelerate. Adrenaline, my organism reacting to a hallucination as if it were a real threat. Stupid biological machine. Calm down, I ordered myself. Look at the diode. Count the cycles. 1, 2. Red light flooded the figure, and for a second it seemed to me that the folds of fabric moved, like a chest inhaling. It's a draft, I thought, though the windows were closed, or microcycades of the eyes. The eyes tremble, creating an illusion of movement. I closed my eyes, cutting off the visual channel of information. If I don't see the monster, it doesn't exist. Logic 1. A minute later, or an hour later, the chemical shackles fell away, and I fell into a normal, black sleep without dreams. Morning met me with gray light and a headache. I sat up in bed, feeling as if I had been beaten with sandbags all night. There was a vile, metallic taste in my mouth. First thing, I looked into the corner. The rack was empty. A chill ran down my spine, instant and sharp, like a needle prick. I got up, walked across the room. My coat lay in the opposite corner, by the door. It wasn't just dropped. It lay in a lump, as if it had been thrown with force across the entire room. I froze, staring at the pile of fabric. Delirium, I whispered. My voice was hoarse from sleep. Rationalization kicked in instantly, like an emergency generator. I tossed and turned. I had a fit of violent motor activity in my sleep. I could have gotten up, torn off the coat, thrown it, and laid back down. Somnambulism? Never noticed it before, but stress before exams works wonders. Or I hit the rack with my foot on the way to the toilet and didn't even wake up, and the coat just flew off? No, physics doesn't work that way. Fine, I said, lifting the heavy fabric. Let's say I kicked it hard. I hung the coat back up, deliberately straightening the shoulders so it hung evenly, checked the stability of the rack. It stood firm. No ghosts, I said to my reflection in the dark monitor screen. Just lousy neurochemistry. The day passed in a fog. I drank coffee by the liter, sat through lectures listening to the professor drone on about pharmacokinetics, but my thoughts kept returning to that pile of fabric in the corner. I felt foolish. Me, a future doctor, a man of science, afraid of my own clothes. In the evening, I specifically moved the rack further away from the bed, took a melatonin pill. I needed quality, deep sleep. No awakenings, no paralysis. The second time was worse, much worse. I woke up from the sensation that a sack of cement had been placed on me. The paralysis was total. If last time I could feel at least my elbows, now I was locked inside my own corpse. I couldn't blink. My eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling. But I wasn't alone. This time, it wasn't hiding in the corner. It wasn't pretending to be a coat. The shadow was right on top of me. An inky, shapeless stain hovered over my face, blotting out the ceiling. I felt pressure. This wasn't a phantom sensation of heaviness in the whole body. It was localized, concrete pressure on the sternum, as if someone's knee was pressing my ribs inward towards the spine. Crack! I heard cartilage crunch, or did I imagine it? And the smell. God, that smell! It didn't smell of dust or old clothes. It smelled of raw, greasy earth that had just been dug up from a deep pit. A musty, Swedish stench of rot mixed with the sharp, stinging scent of ozone, as if lightning had struck graveyard soil. My brain, trapped in the cranial box, thrashed in panic. Olfactory hallucinations, phantomism. This is a sign of a tumor or severe neurosis. This is not real. There is no smell. The creature descended lower. Now it was a centimeter from my face. I saw no features, only absolute light-absorbing blackness. But I felt heat. Heat radiated from it, like a rotting compost pile. And then I heard it. A quiet, rustling sound, like dry leaves rubbing against each other. Turn over. No, no, no. That is not a voice. It is blood rushing in my ears, pulsatile tinnitus. The brain, in a state of hypoxia, it is hard to breathe, damn it, is trying to interpret chaotic noise as speech. It's the same effect as faces on Mars, auditory pareidolia. I hear what I fear to hear. You are not sleeping. It rustled right into my ear canal, wetly, with clear articulation.
I am sleeping, I screamed mentally. This is a hypnagogic hallucination. You don't exist. It's a glitch in the reticular formation of the brainstem. I know anatomy, damn it. I know how you work. The pressure on my chest increased. Air left my lungs with a thin whistle, and no new air came in. Purple circles swam before my eyes. Hypoxia, my internal medical observer noted detachedly. I will lose consciousness soon, and the nightmare will end. Just need to wait for the cortex to shut down. But I didn't shut down. The creature kept me on the edge, allowing me neither to inhale nor to slip into saving oblivion. I was a lab rat pinned to the corkboard of reality. And it enjoyed my analysis. It fed on my skepticism just as greedily as on my fear. I decided to approach madness with a ruler and calipers. If my brain is breaking, I must document the crack. In the evening, I downloaded a sleep recorder app. Simple algorithm. The app activates recording when the noise level exceeds a set threshold. I calibrated the sensitivity to the maximum. If a floorboard creaks in the room, I will know. If I myself am mumbling nonsense about demons, I will hear it and write myself a referral to a psychiatrist in the morning. Control, I muttered, plugging in the nightlight. Childish, in the shape of a yellow moon. Ridiculous, a medical student afraid of the dark. But the logic was ironclad. Hallucinations are often tied to sensory deprivation. Give the brain a visual anchor, and it will stop drawing monsters in the shadows. Light kills shadows. Light kills dabbed sog. I put the phone by the headboard, screen down, and forced myself to close my eyes. Morning came not with the singing of birds, but with the sensation of sand under my eyelids. My throat was sore, as if I had screamed into the pillow all night. I grabbed the phone. My hands were shaking, a fine, nasty tremor that made it hard to hit the icon with my finger. The app proudly announced 10 events recorded. The first 9 were predictable. The rustling of sheets, my heavy sigh, the sound of a car passing on the street.
The sound wave graph barely fluctuated. I scrolled to the 10th recording. Time, 3:33. I pressed play. First, silence. Then, my breathing, heavy, hoarse, intermittent like an asthmatic during an attack. I was clearly trying to scream, but air wasn't passing through spasmodic chords. And then the sound changed. Click. A clear, dry click of the tongue. Loud, too close to the microphone. That couldn't be me. To make such a sound, the tongue must be relaxed, and I was choking. Click. And a whisper. Quiet, but piercing, cutting through the static of the recording. Turn around. The phone slipped from my sweaty fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. I knew that voice. It was Mom. But Mom lived 300 kilometers away, and Mom never, not once in her life, spoke with such intonation, cold, devoid of emotion, imitating human speech but not being it, like a neural network trained on thousands of hours of audio recordings, but not understanding the meaning of words. Interference, I said aloud. My voice broke into a squeal. It's radio interference, feedback. Or I myself, in the sleep, imitated her voice. People speak in other voices during dissociative disorders. I picked up the phone and deleted the app, erased the data. No data, no problem. The scientific method failed, producing a result I could not accept. By the third night, I had turned into an exposed nerve. Caffeine no longer invigorated, it only accelerated tachycardia. My heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped bird. I sat at the table, surrounded by textbooks, with every light in the apartment turned on. I will not sleep. I will just wait it out. The body can withstand up to 11 days without sleep before irreversible changes begin. I need just one night. But physiology cannot be cheated. Microsleep struck suddenly. I simply blinked, and my eyelids filled with lead. My head fell onto my folded arms. A second of darkness, and instant, brutal paralysis. This time there was no preamble, no shadows in the corner. It was already on me. Heavy, inconceivably heavy, and hot. I felt the heat burning through my t-shirt. This was not the mystical chill of a ghost. This was the metabolic heat of a predator with an incredibly fast metabolism. The creature weighed 100 kilograms, but to the touch it felt soft, almost liquid. My ribs cracked. I felt my sternum bending inward. It was getting comfortable. Panic, pure and animalistic, flooded my consciousness. Move, move or die, the brain screamed. I remembered advice from forms. Don't try to move the whole body. Focus on the small, the pinky finger, the most insignificant part of the body. I directed all my will, all my terror, all my desire to live into the tip of the pinky on my left hand. Move. Come on. One phalanx, one impulse. The creature pressed its face to my ear. I felt the wet touch of something resembling lips but without skin. Don't leave, it rustled in Mom's voice. Go to hell, I roared mentally, and the pinky twitched. It was as if a taut string snapped. The paralysis broke instantly. I jumped up from the chair with a yell, knocking over textbooks. The chair tipped over. I crashed to the floor, hurting my knee, but immediately scrambled up, swinging my fists. No one. The light was on. The cooler humed. The night street made noise outside the window. I stood in the middle of the room, gasping for air, wet with sweat, heart pounding madly. Ha ha ha! A laugh tore from my throat, sounding like a bark. It worked! Take that, you filth! I won. This is just chemistry, just a glitch in the basal ganglia. I hacked the system. I got out. I felt nauseous. Need to wash my face. Wash off this sticky sweat of fear. Cold water will bring me back to reality completely.
I flew into the bathroom, turned the tap on full. Water hit the sink. I cupped my hands and splashed it onto my face. The liquid was strange, too thick,
It ran down my skin slowly, like liquid jelly or mucus. Pipes, I thought mechanically, wiping my eyes. Something with the pipes again. I raised my head and looked into the mirror. The world stopped. Time stopped. The laws of physics, optics, and common sense left the room. The mirror reflected the bathroom, the tiles, the curtain, the towels. But I wasn't there. Above the sink was empty space. Instead of my reflection, the mirror showed what was behind my back, but from an impossible angle, like a camera hanging in the air. It showed my bedroom, my table, and my body. I saw myself. I was sitting at the table, my head dropped on my arms, in the exact pose I was in when microsleep hit me. I hadn't woken up. I never got up. My awakening, my victory, my trip to the bathroom, all of it was a hallucination inside the paralysis, a false awakening, the brain's cruelest trap. But the most terrifying thing was what sat upon me. In the mirror, I finally saw it. No coat, no shadow. On my back, clasping me with multiple semi-transparent gray limbs, sat a huge pulsating clot of flesh. It resembled an overgrown tick or a tumor that had gained consciousness. Its head, a shapeless growth, was buried at the base of my neck as if it were drinking something directly from the spinal cord. At the moment I realized this, the creature in the reflection moved. Slowly, with a wet squelching sound, it pulled its appendage out of my neck and turned its head toward the mirror, straight at me, at my consciousness, trapped in this illusory bathroom. It had no eyes, only a slit full of teeth small as needles. The slit widened, and I heard a sound that made something snap inside me. Click. A jerk. I was yanked back with force capable of breaking a spine. I flew back into my body, sitting at the table. The pain was absolute. This wasn't just a cramp. My heart, exhausted by days of fear and liters of caffeine, lost its rhythm. Ventricular fibrillation, chaos of electrical impulses. Thump, thump, thump. I tried to inhale, but my diaphragm was paralyzed. The creature hadn't vanished. I felt its weight, its heat, its limbs penetrating through skin inward to the organs. In my fading consciousness, the article about the Hmong flashed. We are idiots. We understood it all wrong. They didn't die from fear of spirits. They died because they refused to wake up. They knew that if they woke up, if they came out of the sleep, they would fall into the trap of a false awakening, again and again, an endless cycle where reality melts and the thing waits for you in every mirror. Their hearts didn't give out from fear. They couldn't handle the race. Or they stopped them themselves by sheer force of will, so as not to return there. There was a knock at the door. "Hey, neighbor, is everything okay in there? You're screaming like you're being slaughtered." The sound was so close. Salvation was behind a thin sheet of plywood. I just need to move a finger, just need to moan. But I felt gray limbs squeezing my heart, gently like a lover. Click. "Sleep," whispered Mom's voice directly into my brain. Now it was soft, enveloping. "It will be easier this way. Don't fight. I am here." The pain began to recede, replaced by a warm, cottony numbness. The cold from my fingertips reached my heart. The neighbor knocked again, but the sound was already dull, as if from under deep water. I stopped fighting. I unclenched my mental fist, and I am finally, truly falling asleep forever.